Thanks, Kristen. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, council, staff and residents and delegates to our regular council meeting for Tuesday, December 17th, 2024, and we're being streamed live. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:30 with the land acknowledgement. We are meeting today on the traditional territory of the many nations, including the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. We acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within. We honor their cultures and celebrate their commitment to this land. We would also like to acknowledge the Mohawk and Algonquin nations whose traditional and unceded territory we are gathered upon today. Hastings County is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Thank you. Next, I need a motion to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Marmor Lake for Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. I have a mover and a seconder, Ron and Eric. Any discussion on that agenda? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Being none, thank you. Next is the mayor's report. December 3rd, I presided over the regular council meeting. Due to the forecast of bad weather, I traveled that night to Belleville to be in attendance at the Board of Health's meeting, as it was the final meeting of the Board of Hastings Prince Edward Public Health, and I am the chair. December the 4th, I presided over the regular meeting of Hastings Prince Edward Public Health. This was the final meeting of the Hastings Prince Edward Board since the province approved our merger proposal and the new corporation consisting of Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, Addington, and Hastings Prince Edward Public Health Boards. And that will be implemented on January the 1st, 2025. The new board will be called the Southeast Health Unit. December 5th, I attended the inaugural meeting to appoint Bob Mullen, Warden of Hastings County. That evening, I was invited and attended the Christmas dinner with members of the Classic Cruisers Car Club. That event was held at the Springbrook Diner. I would like to thank the Car Club for their generous donations and support for the breakfast programs in both the Marmor Public and separate schools. December 7th, I participated in our annual Santa Claus Parade. The Lions Club again put together and organized a fabulous parade. The floats were excellent. And thank you to Jeff and his staff for putting together a truck float with a popular snowman. And thanks, Jeff, for making sure I got there and back home safe. The weather was horrible, but the spirit of the community was not discouraged. The attendance was amazing. Thank you to the Lions Club and to all participants in making this the best parade Marmor has been proud to have. December the 9th, the meeting previously scheduled for the Southeastern Transition Team was canceled due to poor weather. The meeting was rescheduled for December 12th. Due to the very challenging timelines, the 3 board chairs and the 3 medical officers of health participated in a Zoom meeting that day from 11 to 12:30. December the 12th, I chaired the meeting of the Southeast Transition Team. Frequent meetings are necessary as we must be prepared for implementing the new board on January 1st, 2025. I will be participating in a meeting on New Year's Day, January the 1st at 3 o'clock to implement the new corporation. It will be to put to vote on critical bylaws, the positions of chair and vice chair. This process is necessary to also establish the mandatory roles of the Chief Medical Officer of Health and the 3 associate/deputy medical officers of health. December the 13th, John and I delivered Christmas cards to staff. That evening, I was invited to attend the dinner organized by the Boomerang Club at the Mighty Crow Bar and Grill. There was entertainment, a traditional menu for Christmas dinner, and wonderful company. Thanks for sharing and including me in your celebration. December the 15th, I was invited to attend the 150th anniversary at St. Paul's Anglican Church in Marmor. I presented them with a certificate and on behalf of the mayor, council, and the municipality, and congratulated them on this very important occasion. A lunch was provided following the service. Thank you to the members of the congregation for their community participation. December 17th, I attended the Hastings County Christmas lunch at the Mighty Crow. That was at noon today. And tonight I am presiding over our regular council meeting. And this is the final council meeting for 2024. We've had some challenges over this past year. Fortunately, we have successfully hired an arena manager and a CAO. We are in the process of negotiating a first collective agreement. We will be working on budget for 2025, and a schedule will be provided in the near future. I would like to take the opportunity to thank council for their diligence in going through the recruitment process to put our management team in place. There were many special meetings to conduct the necessary interviews. Thank you to Waterhouse Executive Search for their guidance and support during that process. Thank you particularly to staff who were dedicated and committed to the organization during vacancies. We have an excellent team and staff, and they continue to support the public and council. And I want to wish council, staff, and all residents and visitors a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you. Next on the agenda is delegations, and they will be 15 minutes in total. So first of all, Sebastian. Yeah, just turn your microphone on. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I assume this is working. Okay, thanks. So basically super easy for me today, I think. I just wanted to inquire about my business and whether or not I could rent a space that the municipality owns. So if you want to know, it's basically the little canteen section of the building that's at the beach on the Legion Park. If we could just flip the slide. Basically, the reason why I want to do it, so Marmora obviously has a lot of tourism in it. A lot of people stay here. A lot of things happen in the summertime. My business is part of that. So I actually operate it right now out of the front of my building on 10 Forsyth Street, which works fabulously. And I wanted to kind of expand the business going into the new year. What I was hoping to do is kind of increase the number of people coming into the town. Right now, I'm serving over 100 people throughout the summertime. In terms of groups, and I'd like to increase that business to ideally like 500 per summer. That would be really fantastic. And I think that this building specifically would really allow that to happen due to the visibility of it on Highway 7. And also the space itself is somewhat of an activity center in town with the baseball diamond there and everything else that's going on. So busy location, lots of parking, all of those types of things. Basically would create more activities for youth and family to participate in Marmora as well, because kayaking the river is definitely something really beautiful and something that I've been able to kind of already start running a successful business off of. Basically, the other thing I want to say is that right now it's kind of like an underutilized space. So I think it would give it the opportunity to have some utility. And then potentially also benefit from some synergistic business opportunities. There's more space available in that building. So if one business is operating there successfully, maybe that allows other businesses to operate there successfully, creates revenue for the municipality, and is kind of a win-win for everybody. The other thing is that we're already fully insured. I'm happy to participate in any other insurance policies that are required for this, but I have $3 million in liability for it already. Which covers my physical location. So if I were to transfer it, I'm sure that that's something that's doable based off of the information that I've received from my insurance broker so far. And then the last thing is it can potentially keep the beach a lot cleaner as well. I know that's something that the people of this municipality sometimes complain about. But if I was operating my business there, that'd just be something that I would want for my patrons, because it would be a better experience overall for them. So with the help from employees that I would employ for this particular venture, they could potentially rate that beach or whatever it is that the municipality allows them to do. So that's something that could be discussed further. And then if we want to just jump over one more slide, So basically it's that little space right there. I don't need the whole building because it's mainly for the storage of kayaks. The way that the business operates right now is I actually don't need internet. I don't need many things. So this space works really ideally for that. And the reason for that is just because all of my business is done, payment, I should say, is done through an app on my iPad or my phone. So it's super easy for people to pay directly that way or through cash. And then basically what I'm proposing for this particular space is that I can rent it seasonally on like a 2-year term, and kind of go from there. And just to make it quicker, because I know there's more people tonight, if we could jump over to the next slide. Things that I already know about the space and things that I figured that you guys would ask me about. Obviously, this MTO guideline is going to be there because it's close to the highway in terms of signage and things like that. So I'd obviously comply with all of those that are required. Basically, all I'd want to be able to do is put like a sign kind of on that door. I'm not going to do anything with like lights or anything like that that would interfere with the highway. And then I'd have some kayaks kind of displayed on the outside of the building as well, if that was something that'd be permissible for the town, just so that it'd be a little bit more, I guess, like energetic when people are passing by and turning into that parking lot. One thing that I would request, just because I know sometimes I've been down there, I live here and I go there quite often. The bathrooms aren't always open, so I don't know if this is something that could help kind of allow that to happen more regularly through kind of revenue streams, or if it's just for any other particular reason. And then the only other thing is I would sell some additional products from the space as well, things like children's floaties, noodles, things like that for people who are stopping in Marmora or live in Marmora to enjoy the river with. And that's pretty much it. So really what I wanted to get at today's meeting is to figure out whether or not that's even possible. And then kind of take next steps from there to determine if it is something that's possible, how do we actually do that?
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Sebastian or comments? Go ahead, Eric.
Excuse me. Thanks, Sebastian. The rack that you currently have, is your idea that you're going to move that rack with the kayaks down there in front of the building?
No, so the rack that I have right now, I would keep at the 10 Forsyth location because some of my patrons just pick up the kayaks and do a drop-off delivery because they're taking them to another lake or a different location, within like the hour. So I would kind of leave that as a dedicated pickup and drop-off zone for self-serve. And then this particular space would be much more geared towards people who just kind of want to go for like an hour or two on the water. Easier for them to actually like take the kayak down to the water because it's obviously right there than it is from my location.
So you'd expand your fleet of kayaks then? If
Yeah.
you took this on?
Yeah, so
This
there's
space.
already an expanded fleet of kayaks. They're not contained specifically to that
Oh, I see.
locker.
Okay.
There's more of them. But the locker I kind of used as a way to gain visibility within the municipality instead of using the entire storefront or something like that. But yeah, I wouldn't be bringing that locker down there. It's too heavy.
Okay. What would your business hours be from that location?
So that would kind of depend. I haven't 100% decided on that, but I'm thinking kind of like a Thursday to Sunday situation. And then probably 12 to like 8 p.m. type of thing, but not 100% decided. I just think that would be best because most people who do an early kayak are people who are picking it up. And a lot of the people who are doing kind of like the afternoon kayak are the ones that want to do it for a shorter period.
Okay. How do you foresee your renters of the kayaks interacting with the users of the public beach that's there? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it'd be very similar to the way that it is right now because transparently, most of them are taking them down there anyways right now. So they're using it as it's intended as kind of like a public space. So I would imagine that they're going to do the same thing, which is basically take the kayak down to the water, get in from the beach location there, and then kind of paddle downstream. I've never really had anyone use the dock because I always recommend that they do it from the ground level just for their safety and stuff like that as part of the instructions that I give them or the little lesson that I give them prior to their departure. But yeah, like that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Any other questions, Jane? Your mic.
Wonderful idea.
Thank you.
You mentioned 6 months seasonal. Is that April to October or what are you looking at?
Yeah, basically, I probably actually ideally open up in May until the end of October, into early November, kind of depending on the year. But I generally speaking don't open it in April because the water is a little bit more aggressive then, and you have like the whitewater rafting. And for the general public, I'm not really interested in that. I know I have the insurance and everything, but it's probably better for their safety not to do that in April.
Okay. So, just for clarification, so I was there today and I went for a tour of the little space. So the little space there, you're going to use that just for storage only of, kayaks and inventory?
No, so a lot of people would be able to pick up from that location because they can book online and most people do currently do that. But the intention would be that I would have an employee kind of man that particular space. So, that I guess, metal door on the building kind of lifts up and acts in a canteen fashion. So I'd have that open sign on it, employee there to kind of man that. And then the kayaks I would like leave inside of that building,
Okay,
so that they could be taken in and out to give to patrons. And then, ideally I'd put a couple of them along the side with like another sign that says for rent or something similar to that.
okay. Then, you mentioned, possibly selling some additional products. So would you be storing those at the canteen space as well, or would they be up at your?
So they would be stored. Some of them would be stored at the canteen space, and most of them would probably be stored in my basement at my current location. So I'd have products there that could be offered, but I'm not going to store like all of my inventory there type of thing.
Okay. And you had mentioned other businesses sharing some of the spaces.
Yeah,
Do you have a wish list of what kind of businesses you would like to see there or what you wouldn't like to see there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not something I really thought of. I just thought of things that would be synergistic in terms of tourism and kind of the seasonality of it. So I know, like, for example, the ice cream store is gone, so there could be another ice cream vendor there or something that kind of works with that seasonal summer fun, because that's what it is. It's a beach, it's seasonal summer fun. So things that kind of operate within that space is what I would hope for. I mean, we'd have to have the businesses within Marmor actually want to open up there, but it's something that I thought could be advertised, and I know that there's people looking for spaces.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Eric?
I just, I have a question for Jeff through the chair, if possible. Jeff, do you see any other planned use for that space in the foreseeable future?
Not currently. I personally believe this is a viable option for the Beach House and Legion Park. We already are paying to maintain the building. It would be beneficial to the community to see it in use. It would provide more washroom accessibility within the business hours of the wildlife rentals facility hours. And this building would benefit from its use rather than it remaining dormant. I think it would be a waste of municipal assets to let it sit idle rather than facilitate a mutually beneficial partnership with the wildlife rentals.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Anybody else? Ron?
Yeah, I too like the idea. It's a great idea, but I would like to see a staff report around all these ideas and questions for the next company. So I'd like to make a motion, if I may, to have staff do a report, bring back next meeting. With some of
Next
maybe
meeting.
more ideas what you want to do. Maybe you could talk to John about that and
So I need a seconder for that motion, Eric?
Sorry, just before you, Ron, would you be open to that, including a cost estimate for the
yeah,
space?
that's kind of where we need to go next. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that
Yeah.
it's an opportunity. And I think that again, it's an asset of the municipality, and to leave it underutilized, you know, would be a mistake. And I think although council, I think have to be convinced that they have to be convinced that this is the right thing for the municipality as well. And I think just in order to do that, we just need some details in a report. I see you, Mike, just a sec. So I think, were you gonna second that motion, Eric? Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay, Mike?
Okay, yeah, I've been trying to get on and say something. The only thing I need to know is, and Jeff can do it when he does his report, is we usually ask for 5 million in insurance. So, and I noticed that he's got 3 million. So I don't know if that's gonna make any difference. And as DeLaurel Hall, do we have to justify our rent that he's going to charge? Do we have to do the same thing that we did at DeLaurel, would have to have done at DeLaurel Hall to show that there's no favoritism being going on through this? I think it's a great idea. The other question I got is, if he's there on the weekend, that would be great because he can't open the washrooms on the weekends, which I don't think we have. The only question I got now is, the union going to say that he can't do that because that's a union job? And I think we're going to have to look into that. But I think it's a great idea. I think we wish them all the luck in the world. And it's like you said, it's a perfect place to put that. But those are just my thoughts on it so far.
Thanks, Mike. I think those are all thoughts that we would want seen addressed in the staff report. Jane?
I don't know how the wording of this would go in the staff report. Can we put that we're doing a survey of local buildings to find out what the current market value of rent is per square foot?
Are you okay with amending the motion to include that?
Yeah,
Ron?
absolutely. I'd like to add a little bit more to it if I can. I'm just sitting here thinking, my only other problem with this is we should make it available to anybody else that might want it. If you know where I'm going, like, I think that it's great. What you're doing is great, but we should maybe other people don't know that it's available. So should we? I just think we should it should be available to anybody else that might want to put a business there. It should be an option. I don't know how to ask that question, but you know where I'm going, like, if there's nobody else knows that it's available.
If I can just make a suggestion to you, let your original motion stand and then make another motion that there be some sort of a option for anyone else to make that a separate motion.
Yeah, I just thought of it sitting there.
Yeah.
I thought maybe there's other people that want to have a business as well that aren't getting the opportunity.
So your first, are you okay with letting your first motion
Yep.
stand?
Yeah.
And so Eric, you're okay? So I'll ask for a vote on that first motion. All in favor? That's carried. Go ahead, Ron, if you want to make a second motion.
I don't know how to word that. I'm just throwing the idea out there that there could be other people or other organizations or a canteen or whatever that might want to use that don't know that's available. And all I'm saying is, if we rent it now without putting that out there, it's not fair to the public that someone else might want to use it for some other thing.
What would be the method of doing that? Maybe John, could you?
Through you, Mayor, to the councillor. So in looking at that, we can certainly look at the idea of whether it's an RFP or the idea of offering that. Again, I think what we'd like to do is see the business there. So if it's an idea of looking and examining what the options are, with your motion, the only thing I would say is that because there's a lot that you're looking for, the idea of what's the market rent, we also, from a municipal standpoint, of being very mindful of how council has been with respect to not being favored, but the idea of being encouraged and open for business, being able to look at what would be the costs associated with, then the idea what would be an appropriate return on investment, not only for ourselves, for any business, being able to do that. Perhaps if I could add another council meeting, the next one is January 21st. So I'm just mindful of being able to give council everything they need. And then to the councillor's motion and with the idea of looking at what would that look like from either an RFP perspective or making sure there's fairness and transparency in the opportunities, I think is what you're looking for. But that would give me an opportunity to sort of seek legal opinion and sort of saying like, is it a problem if we do this? But again, I think it's great to have a business come forward. It's something that's proven. We want to encourage that. Certainly hear the sentiment from council that you want to look at, it's an appropriate use for the space, but to be able to come back with not just a business plan in the sense of what the agreement would look like, but also some discussions with whomever that would be, that if I could just ask for a little bit more time, maybe the first meeting in February, be able to do that. But otherwise, I think that's more or less what I'm hearing from council, unless I'm mistaken on something.
Perfect. Yep, perfect. Thanks.
Your mic is off.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yes. But from what I understand, there's 2 other spaces there in that place that can be rented out, and that's what he was offering to do it. And well, I agree with you. I just don't like the idea of somebody coming forward's got a great idea, went to the trouble to do it, and now we're going to take it out from underneath them and rent it to somebody else. That's the only problem I see with this whole thing going forward. Nobody else asked to use it. Nobody else has asked to use it in the last 2-3 years. And I would think if there's other spaces at that place, then we could rent those out. But I think we should give this gentleman the right of first refusal on it as he approached us. But I think all the other ideas are great. I just don't want to get in trouble going out and renting it way below market and then have somebody come back and say, well, you favored him and you did something like that. I don't want that to happen. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to us. So those are,
Okay,
that's what
so
I'd like to see. And I think it's great that Jeff would look into it and come back later on with a report.
So
Thank you.
motion on, we approved a motion for Jeff to bring forward a report. And did you want to still make a motion, Ron?
No, I think John will look after that.
Okay. Okay, so we're good with that then. Okay, everybody okay with that? Okay, thank you very much, Sebastian, for bringing forth this proposal. And I'm sure that you and Jeff can have some discussion, and Jeff will bring back a report too. What is the next meeting that you're suggesting, John?
Through you, Mayor, it's January 21st.
January 21st?
Again,
Just a quick follow-up. Do I have to be present here for that? Because I won't be in the country.
Yeah. Is that an offer or where are we going? Absolutely. I think from the standpoint of being able to bring something together, what we'd like to do is what I'm understanding again through you, Chair, to the delegation, is being able to understand what exactly your business plan is, put that forward,
Yeah.
put some details, some more meat on the bone, so to speak, and be able to do that. And whether that's resolved in its complete form on January 21st or going forward, we can do that. But make sure that we'll have that discussion and work around your timelines as where you are and what you're doing. But again, I think it's important, and again, appreciate on behalf of council that you're coming forward with this idea, and we'll provide council with what you're looking for and a follow-up to that.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Just quick clarification on the motion and that was made. Just, we aren't looking to offer the space to anybody else who may come along then? That's not part of the motion? Good. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Just through you, Mayor, to Councillor Relakatos. No, that motion, that part of the motion was not passed, but I do believe I understand what Councillor Derry was looking for in terms of being able to look at that. And again, as Deputy Mayor had indicated, there are other spaces there and looking at available. It is a space we want to be, one, open for business, but two, also be able to put complementary uses there. And I think it's an ideal spot for that type of use.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Good discussion, and thank you for your presentation, Sebastian. Next, Shannon Lee and Andrea Markham, Central Hastings Support Network, regarding the Central Hastings Transit Services update. Welcome, ladies. I don't think we have that activated because, yeah, no.
No, that was my phone. Oh dear. Okay,
Okay,
uh,
go ahead, please.
thank you. Thank you, council, for having us in today. I'm Shannon Lee. I'm the Executive Director of Community Learning Alternatives, but I'm sitting here today as the chair from Central Hastings Support Network.
Can you just speak directly into your mic?
I could
Yeah,
try.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks.
So we're here to talk to you about Central Hastings Transit Program. Now, I've been involved with CHSN for a long, long time. And I remember when the transit program first began, I believe it was 2012. So we've been going for a long time. And during that whole time, the municipality of Marmora Lake has been one of our biggest supporters. So we wish to thank you all for your continued support for the Central Hastings Transit Program. We would, I'm going to fly through this because we got a lot of slides. So please, if you, yeah. So we'll go through it quick. We're really just going to look at the impact of transit services in Marmora Lake. We're going to look at the ridership statistics and introduce our interim proposal for transit and look at the next steps. And of course, we're seeking continued support from the municipality, not asking for any increase in funding that over what has been offered in the past, but we would ask that you continue to provide letters of support when we're looking for funding through proposals. So 2012, I think, was the beginning of Central Hastings Support Network, the transit program. And it grew out of our program that was a volunteer driver program to provide access to medical care in our rural communities. And through that, we have developed a transit program that serves Center Hastings, Madoc Township, Marmora Lake, Sterling Rawdon, and Tweed. If we could go on to the next slide. So originally we had we didn't have a large bus, we had a large van, full-size van that we used originally, and we had some fixed routes. Later on, we moved to our 11 passenger vans that had modified routes, and we used some volunteer drivers. Now we're using two transit vans and volunteer drivers to deliver the program. The funding for the program includes the provincial gas tax, which we're able to access purely through the kindness of the Marmora Lake, who have allowed us to be able to access that. We are supported through all 5 of the municipalities. In the past, we received Hastings County Homelessness Prevention Program funds. We received United Way funds. We received contributions from all 5 municipalities, and of course, user fees for the program. So I heard you say that this has been a challenging year for the municipalities, and it has been for us as well. So COVID kind of blew things out of the water, and it was very strange, and we had to sell the vans because we couldn't afford them, or the big vans. And then we had COVID, and that just made things a little bit more challenging. Of course, our ridership went down. And since then, since last January, I suppose, it's really ramped up, and we've seen a huge increase in ridership, and the sustainability of the program has been a big, big challenge. Marmora Lake saved us in the summertime when we ran into some cash flow issues with the getting the gas tax funds to us a little sooner than they had anticipated. So that kept us afloat for them. We tried some various different strategies to try and reduce the program. But it was next to impossible to do. And so we made a decision to put on pause the public transit until we could work with United Way and municipal leadership to look at some solutions. We didn't completely close off the program. We've continued to provide transit to folks that were purchasing a monthly pass to get them to work and to school and to programs. So we're talking today about an interim solution that's going to help us to avoid service disruption and keep us sustainable in the long term. The next slide is a look at the ridership. Now, this doesn't have numbers on it, I noticed as I got here, but it does have, you can see the big spike that we've seen since 2023. It's just gone up exponentially. That is for our conventional rides. That's for people who are going to school, going to work, going to go shopping, various kinds of things, going to visit people until this September. And then the specialized transit is our accessible van, and it's for people doing medical appointments, persons with disabilities, various kinds of specific transit purposes, like someone's got to go to a doctor's or the hospital or various things like that. So the people that we support are vulnerable folks, people with developmental disabilities, mental health issues, any other kinds of vulnerability, accessibility issues. We provide support for workers, which is paid or volunteer, students who are attending college, or in some cases going from the rural communities into different programs in the high school programs in Belleville. People in transitions, so specialized training to enable an employment. So if there was you probably have heard about the Elevate Plus program that's offered in Trenton, and we had some folks that were accessing that program. So the general public, for folks who don't have the reliable transportation of their own or can't afford it, and they need to access the necessities of life, and people in need of medical care. So we take people to physician's appointments, we take people for dialysis, for cancer treatments, for blood work, all kinds of different reasons that we take folks. Since April of this year, over 20,000 rides have been scheduled. It's unbelievable. When I've been around for so long, and when we just would take, 400 people in a year when we first started out, would have been really great, but yeah, 20,000. It's a big, big, big job. If we look at the medical rides by municipality, folks from Marmora are the highest proportion of those. So that's 42.2% of the medical rides, which also includes that specialized transit for folks with developmental disabilities and who access programs like COPE and QBSS pathways. So by far the biggest proportion for our specialized transit comes from Marmora. The public transit rides, we have Marmora is second in line, just after Tweed. So, and then the final one is the number of unique users by municipality. I don't know why the names and numbers don't show up on there, but I have them here. So Marmora is the one right in the middle. So 84 unique users from the Marmora area so far this year. The highest is Centre Hastings with 109, and then there's Tweed with 85, and Sterling and Madoc Township have 20-ish. So in terms of what the transit looks like, in terms of what are the uses that are done, most of it is individuals accessing day programs at COPE and QBSS and Pathways to Independence. Highest proportion of almost 83%. 10% is our folks going to work, with less than 1% going to school, and just for basic needs of getting the groceries and all the things that we need to do just to keep our stuff in line. That's 6.2%. I'm gonna hand it over to Andrea.
Ooh. Is this, am I close enough? Yeah, usually you can hear me on the next block, so I'm not usually worried about that. So I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of our proposal. So this proposal will likely be the one that is implemented in April 2025. So right now we're in that pause where we're giving some rides to some folks, but it's not public transit yet. So that's going to be the difference. So we'll just move on. And the first thing that was done was we looked at some principles so that we had some guidelines. And these have been the cornerstone guidelines that have been used to develop this proposal. And the biggest things is recognizing that rural transit is vitally important in our area to for the well-being of our people and our communities. And knowing that, we also know we have to cover our costs. So those two things kind of have to go hand in hand along with the rest. So we've also made some changes, and the ones that will impact your constituents, I just wanted to highlight them. So they're going to be sharing more spaces. We'll be using more vans. So we're hoping to get bigger vans or use more vans. So we are going to be continuing to apply for those larger vans, especially when we're not covering the costs through the fare. So the people who are going to cope, there's a number of them, and we may send 3 or 4 drivers to pick up them. We'd like to send a van so that we can cover the cost of that ride. We also have a cap on our service, so we can no longer just try to meet every need that comes. We need to cap our services so that we can continue to offer services and grow as we're able to continue to pay the bills, right? And the last one that will affect your constituents is that we will no longer have town to town service for various reasons. That's the most expensive. It means the longest drives for our volunteer drivers, and volunteer drivers are quite expensive compared to a van that can take a number. These are one person at a time, but there is an option for individuals, and I'll show you that in a minute. So we'll go to the next one. This is just a sample of what might happen. So here is where we can see that if you look at the local side, so we already do the Belleville and back, and we're looking at maybe having a little bit more of a fixed route, a lot more people riding together rather than individual rides. And looking at, you have to book it in advance. So we can't even handle 24 hours, has to be 48 hours in advance that it's booked. Right now, we really can hardly take anybody right now, but once it opens up in April, then you will still have to book in advance. But we're hoping to offer some local, where we would bring people from the surrounding areas in, so to the closest town. So people in and around Marmora Lake could come into Marmora, do their shopping, perhaps make their dentist appointments and physician appointments at those times. And you'll see that that would be Tuesday, Thursday, and every other Friday for Sterling and Marmora. So right now, it wouldn't mean Marmora to Madoc, but you can come into your closest town. So that's where we are right now. Hopefully in the future, we'll be able to do town to town, but since it's so expensive, we need to get sustainable funding for that. So we'll move on to the next one. Oh, and this is just your fees. So you can see the fees are going up. It was 200 a month. It's going up to 250. We haven't had an increase in fees in 10 years. So we feel we absolutely have to be fiscally responsible. And a one-way ride would be $22. So we can move on. There's not many changes to the specialized transit. We will be doing door-to-door for them, much more than we would for the conventional transit. Conventional transit, we're trying to have drop-off places, so it would be take you into Belleville. There's stops in Belleville where you can grab a bus in Belleville, perhaps, or it's near your workplace, like the mall or other high locations where a lot of people go, like the universities and colleges and things like that. But for these folk, there will be door-to-door services, so that won't be changing. But we may have to massage the schedule a bit, and we are working with some of our larger partners like COPE, like Pathways to Learning, CDSS to make sure that we can manage our load and ensure that they can also schedule around when their people can get there. So we'll move on. And the price is pretty much the same fares for them. So what we're hoping to do is reestablish our Rural Transit Advisory Committee. And I know you had someone from your council, I believe, that was a member, Eugene, okay, of that. So we're going to reestablish that. And we'll also probably have more like the board presence on there. Right now I'm the VP, but I'm really interested in this transit, knowing how important it is to our communities. And we're going to look at those fixed stops and schedules. And we really hope we can collaborate with Belleville's transit system so that we can maybe get a reduced fare for them, or even, wouldn't it be wonderful, free transfer, sort of like the city of Toronto and their cities around them. So that's what we're hoping to move for. And an online booking service, because we cannot book these 20,000 with one individual working full time, because it's just too much on an Excel spreadsheet. So we're looking for an online booking system. As you can imagine, she'll be thrilled. Okay. So we do need funding for bigger vehicles so we can make this happen. We're looking at other rural transits. We're continuing to work with them to see what we can implement, what lessons they've learned. We'll hopefully be able to get to that town to town, as I was talking about before, and maybe other things in the future. So as Shannon mentioned, what we're really hoping from you is continued support, as you have in the past, nothing more than you've done in the past, but that continued support, and somebody on our advisory council to bring your perspectives back and forward to us and then back to the council. So we're at questions.
Thank you. Excuse me. I just wanted to point out that I've been attending meetings that have been ongoing since this sort of problem has arisen, to try to, I guess, get the needs identified and the manner of providing those services, because this does serve our most vulnerable residents. But I think we've all identified at those meetings that we need to sit back and reconsider some of the way the programs are being offered and where the funding is from. And your group has have been doing that. The last meeting I was at, there was a presentation, and it introduced these methods that you're planning to implement. The key here is that it has to be sustainable. And I know we've been the banker here in Marmora. I don't know, since its inception, I believe. I'm quite sure we're willing to continue to do that. But in doing that, we also have to be assured that, we're not at risk for this, the funding of this program. I just wanted to ask you a question. When you talk about the percentages of riders, and I know Marmora was the highest on one and I think second highest on the other one, but is that not somewhat because we have the largest populations? Like Tweed has the largest population, we have the second largest. So it would make sense that the percentage of ridership would be higher in those communities.
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
There's quite a number of folks in Marmora who access the COPE programs and the QVSS, and they go every single day. And so that bumps that number up. And I suspect that that's probably the largest reason why Marmora is the highest in our
Okay.
specialized transit.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Or Mike, go ahead.
Do you own the transit vans at this point in time? I know a few years ago, the money was used to buy a larger bus, but I presume that's the one that you sold a few
Yeah.
years back.
Yeah, we did sell our larger bus van. We do have 2 vans that are accessible. They're not fully accessible, but they are accessible. And the rest of the rides that we're offering right now are through volunteer drivers who are reimbursed by kilometer.
Okay, so they supply their own vans or car or whatever.
Their own vehicles, that's right. We do
Their own
have a
vehicle.
full-time driver that uses the vans, depending on the need, like how many riders there are. So, and we are looking to, when we open up the transit, hiring another part-time driver.
And when we go to COPE, which I know is a great program over in Madoc, do we aggregate people when we do that? We don't take everybody privately, do we?
I didn't hear. No, I'm sorry. I didn't hear your question, Mike.
You said the largest number of people attending day programs over at COPE in Madoc,
For the
or
medical,
Marmor area.
yeah,
Well,
So
specialized
do
transit.
we aggregate them, or do we don't drive every person individually, do we?
We aggregate as much as possible, but you have to remember that's somebody's personal car. So when we can get a van that's big enough, we can take them all in one van.
Right, but a car even could take 2 people at once or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
3 maybe.
okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for
Can
your
I add
delegation.
one thing?
Yeah.
That some of the other municipalities have appointed someone from council to sit on our board. And then we adopt them, so they become a full member of the board and they can vote, and it just adds communication back and forward. So we're just offering it to your council as well.
We have our appointment bylaw, that we usually renew each year.
Okay,
And, we would probably need a request from your
okay,
group to, appoint someone, and then we
a
can.
formal request.
Yeah, then we can, look at it and make a
Okay.
decision. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Ron?
Just a question about the board. Where do you meet and how often do you meet? For a
Monthly
board member?
at the CHSN offices on Tuesday evenings.
Evening?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your delegation. Next, a delegation, Merv Taylor and Alan Fluke, Marmor Crow Valley Lions, regarding a Marmor outdoor rink. Welcome. Which one of you wants to speak? Go ahead, please.
So thank you for allowing us to speak. What we're looking for is the Marmor Lions Club and the community volunteers. We're looking to put together an outdoor ice rink. And in order to do that, so the size of this building or platform or rink you want to call it would be 45 feet long by 45 feet wide by 85 feet long. We'd like to either put it up at Memorial Park, and if we did put it in the park, we could use the water from the Heritage Building, or we could bring the water from the lake to get it started. The other place we'd like to put it is up at the arena. So if we put it up at the arena, we'd put it over by the food booth in that area. So this would be in conjunction with us putting it together would be the Lions Club, the Booster Club, the Legion, and Mars. We'd erect signage so that it would say that the following or similar, that the rink is run by the Marmor Lions Club and many community volunteers. Thanks to everybody involving in the outdoor rink reality. We put up a Facebook page where they could post pictures, they could post, we would post that we're cleaning the ice or when they want to clean the ice, or if they want to post pictures of themselves out there skating, they'd be free to bring a shovel. This would be a community effort. So everybody from the community would be allowed to use it on the hours that it's open, at no cost. We, as the 4 clubs, would put this together. We would be also on our sign, it would say good vibes only, please don't litter. The rink is unsupervised. Helmets are required. We don't want pets, foods, or drink on the ice. We want you to be safe. Consider everybody around you. If at any time the rink has to be closed to bad weather or for maintenance, there'll be a sign put up for that during that time too. If the ice is soft, please don't skate. The municipality of Marmor and Lakes or various community volunteers will not be responsible for any injuries, death, damage, or loss of property. And then there'll be a sign that the rink is open and closed. The Lions would also support, and we would use our insurance to cover this facility. If it went up into Memorial Park, we'd careful consideration of the outdoor tap. We'd locate it for maintenance and any other staff. So the staff of town would not be required to do anything. We would be looking after this ourselves. If it's at the park, we'd make sure everything is clean, kept neat and tidy. Again, we're going to inform the people where it's going to be. It's going to be lit. We want community pride. We want people to be involved. We also want to try and get the students involved in this as well to help build this ice rink, maintain the ice rink, and then if they do come and help, we as Lions can sign off of their community hours. So it's not just going to be the 4 entities doing it. We want to bring the whole town, the whole community into this, have everybody involved, making sure that it's run properly. We're going to get them involved as much as possible. We'll sign off on their hours. We encourage community ownership. So we're hoping that if it is in Memorial Park, where we have had vandalism with our lights, and we now get the kids or whoever involved in with the ice rink, it's going to try and keep the vandalism down for the lights as well at Christmas time. Now that they're owning part, they're going to take part of the ownership of this ice rink, being part of the community. So it'll instill a little bit into the community, into the people that help out. And if it's the younger adults, give them a little bit of self-pride. They've got something to do with this and helping us do it all the time. We're going to sign off on hours. We encourage the ownership of the rink and hope it motivates the people. We figure it's going to cost somewhere around $7,000. So again, the Lions, the Mars, the Booster, and the Legion, we will fund this. We pretty much talked, we should be able to come up with the money, no problem right now. This is just a guesstimate on the amount of money. We're not asking for any funding. Like I just said, we're not asking for the town to help us. We will do it ourselves. So the 2 places we'd really like to do it is either the Memorial Park or up at the fairgrounds over by the food booth. Oh, over by the crowd? In front of the crowd. Okay, thank you, Alan. The rink would be covered under the Lions, like I said, the insurance. If we can't, we can have a 4-month package for insurance, which would be $350, which would be covered by the community group or whatever we have to in order to come up with this insurance. We would have it open. We're hoping to have it open from January to March. Unfortunately, Mother Nature just isn't quite cooperating with much of a winter right now, but we don't know. Hopefully in January, if we get approval to get it going, January would be the goal to have it open. So it'd be open for the months of January and March. And we're going to work in conjunction with Havelock, Norwood, and Hastings and the system they've been putting together for, I believe it's 5 to 6 years that they've been doing it right now. So this is what we're hoping we could get approval for. And it will help the other people in the community that can't afford to have their kids in hockey. And now that's going to be open ice, and there's so many different avenues that can come from this. We could start a drive to get used skates to have up there for the kids to come in if they don't have their own skates. We'd have whether it's at the fairground or if it's up at the Memorial Park, we'd end up getting a porta potty put in, which we'd look after too, looking after the garbage. So we're going to have as much as we can for what's required. You got anything to add on that, Alan?
Their microphone, Al, please.
The only other thing is the $7,000 was strictly for the rink itself. That had nothing to do with what we may have to do to get the ice flooded or the only problem down at the information center, the hot water tank in there is only a 10-gallon tank. So, I mean, you're not going to flood much ice with that. So we'll do what we have to do. We just want to get permission from you to put it someplace, and the committee will sit down and we'll jump over the barriers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Mark?
No, that's
Okay.
everything right there.
Ron?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, guys. I was just sitting there thinking, though, you're talking about hot water, Al, and Merv, if you had it closer to the arena, would that be a better thing for the hot water? Like where the horse draw is that a good enough area for that, or?
Yes, there is better possibilities at the arena. Because for the system that's there right now, because there's no minor hockey, no ice, we could tap into their line inside, put an insulated tap outside, and have
Yeah.
hot water run right over to flood it. The only time you're gonna flood that ice is after it's made.
Yeah.
You know, if we have to truck water in when we're first making it, we'll do whatever we have to do. But
Mhm.
you need hot water to finish it off.
Yeah.
But, and again, the area in front of the corral is flat, completely flat. So it's a good spot, I think. But anyways, we'll do whatever. We just want to get permission to do it. We'll put it wherever you guys tell us we have. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have questions? Mike?
I just think it's a great idea. I used to play hockey on an outdoor rink, freezing my butt off, trying to get my skates on in a snowbank. So I think it'd be great. Be perfect. You guys got the energy and the gung ho and the people behind you. I think it'd be great. You've done a lot of research already on it. Like Ron says, personally, I think the behind the arena would be the better spot for it. But I think it'd be up to maybe Jeff to figure out some logistics there as far as water and things like that go. And but we've got to do it quickly. I think we have 10 days where you aren't going to do anything anyways because the weather looks like it's not cooperating till after Christmas. But we still need to give you a go ahead, I would think, as soon as possible.
Anybody else? Eric?
Yeah, I love the fact that this is coming to fruition. The community has been asking for it and it's been thrown around in the few years that I've been here, especially with the arena not being open. I think it's an incredible gesture to put this forward to the community and have access to it. I would love to see this happen in Memorial Park. I think that would be an incredible location. That park is already so beautiful, and having the exposure on Highway 7 would be a awesome spot for it. There's lots of parking there. So you're kind of asking for two locations here. How are you going to decide which location where the rink's going to be located?
Memorial Park was our first thought, and then a little more research. I myself personally believe the fairgrounds would be better. So now we don't have the young children coming from the school having to cross the highway or walk this distance down to the Memorial Park where they could just still walk to the fairgrounds to go skating. Yes, it's not as picturesque as the park, but it's better for the community, I believe, being up at the fairgrounds for the kids. It's closer. We do now have, if the arena is open, they'll have washroom facilities there. And I actually would like to see it happen at the fairgrounds. That would be my first choice.
John, did you have a comment?
Yes, through you, Chair, to the delegation and rest of the council. Perhaps Jeff Young could sort of step in with some advice in terms of logistics, because I think that said, I think it's wonderful that the four clubs are getting together doing the volunteer work, certainly providing the money, but I also think there is some skin in the game from the municipal standpoint with respect to water and staffing and anything like that. But perhaps Jeff could provide some information on that.
Sure.
Of course. Thank you, John. I would like council to understand that I fully behind this idea. I'd love to have our staff involved wherever need be to help facilitate this and make it happen. I would like it to be, with the arena not in service, it would be a solution to this year. The arena does not have the capability to provide hot water for the outdoor rink as well as the arena in a typical day-to-day operation. So obviously it works this year, but we wouldn't want to be trying to flood the outdoor rink while we're also trying to facilitate a midget game inside the arena. So obviously there's that to consider, that this is a this year type of fix, as well as I feel like we have all that we need to install a frost inhibitor on a hose fitting and provide that service so that we are providing water. If it means hot water needs to be taken from inside the rink, I'm not overly comfortable with the security issues as far as having X number of volunteers having full access to the arena. I feel like if my staff were able to facilitate when we need hot water, if need be, from inside, if we can facilitate it from inside to outside and you don't need access into the arena, then it's definitely a viable option. It's just there's just some logistics and liability on the municipality's part if we were to not if we were to grant access into the arena without staff present. I would like staff present if the facilities are being used inside the arena.
Thanks, Jeff. Any further comments, Jane?
So you mentioned a cost of $7,000, but possibly additional costs. Are these costs that the municipality would cover, and are they for the hot water in that, or what are the additional costs?
Well, if we decided to go the Memorial Building, we have to install a hot water heater. It's only a 10-gallon heater in there right now. Any costs that would need to be done for the upgrade of the arena, we will cover the cost. There'll be no cost to the municipality. None.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Eric?
Yeah, I know the hot water thing, I guess that's in a perfect situation. Hot water is the best way to do it. But I know in speaking with the outdoor rink attendant in Havelock, he said for the first several years, they were just using regular water, unheated water. So I don't know. This is the first year of this project starting to get it on the ground and get it going. I'd like to see that happen. And is the hot water part a requirement? I guess would be my question.
I'll get this out. So the initial fill up of the ice to get it started will be cold water. The only time we're going to need hot water is when we're flooding. So that would be at the end of the night when we go to flood, we put a coat of hot water on it. So the initial fill up will be strictly cold water, and we have to truck up from the lake. We'll find a way to truck it up from the lake. Whatever we can do that we don't have to put any cost. That's unforeseen, like especially the water from the municipality. So then the first initial will be fill it up with cold water, and then the hot water will just be whatever it takes for flooding, and it won't take much hot water to flood it. So yes, the first year is just getting it off ground, trying to figure it all out and how we're going to make this all work. But I do believe we can make this work. And there may be a small cost this year getting it going with the hot water until we get to where we need to be. But as far as it goes, we should be able, we want to cover all the costs. We don't want anything coming back to the municipality.
So through you, Chair, to the council and to the delegation, I think what you're hearing around the table, and I won't speak for council, but I think the idea is that definitely the idea is a great idea. There would be some minimal cost just in terms of water, hot water, but you're not hearing any resistance from staff. It's how can we work with the volunteer groups to be able to make that happen? And I think with anything, you don't know how good it's going to be until you try it. And what I'm saying from the staff to council is that we can work with it. Jeff has certainly indicated that there may be some logistical things. None of those are deal breakers. I think anything we can work together in terms of doing that. And if it's council's will, we would certainly do that. I think understanding that absolutely the majority of that cost being borne by you as volunteers, the 4 organizations, but council and through staff would be able to contribute whatever we need to. It's just working out what that is. But I don't see any resistance from council unless council wants to correct me.
Any other comments? Ron? Yes, we do.
I'd like to make a motion, but I'm just not sure where we're going. Use would sooner be at the arena or, okay, then that's my motion. To give them permission to do it wherever they want to do it.
So you're not looking for us to approve one location or the other. John?
I'm usually through your chair, I'm supposed to be quiet in these meetings. I think, and I do apologize, I've broken that promise every single meeting. I think what we'd like to do is that with Jeff's help, I think what he's indicating that if there is a preference, the arena might be one that works well. I certainly know the hot water tank and the capacity there, and certainly in light of the fact that we don't unfortunately have indoor ice, that may be ideal. I do like, as Councillor Dowson says, that, you know, the view and the almost hallmark moment of being able to see that would be wonderful, but there's some logistical things, and given such the short time frame, we'd rather get it up and going. And I think, speaking on behalf of Jeff and staff, we'd like to see that as a preferred. So if the motion, pardon me, if the motion could to sort of push us as staff and direct us to that, we can put all our efforts to that.
Ron, do you want to, we don't have a seconder yet for your motion, so do you want to amend it to deal with a location?
My idea would be the arena because of the hot water, but that's my opinion. So yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay, so I need a seconder then for that motion. Go ahead, Mike. Any comments?
I second the motion that we approve the arena site and that the Lions work with Jeff to make this happen as soon as possible.
Okay, well, there's
If we
already,
can add that.
Ron made the motion, so you're seconding.
I'm seconding the motion. Yep.
Okay. So any other comments? Are you okay with that motion? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much for this idea to start with, and I think it's a really good idea. It's going to be wonderful for the community. I just hope the weather cooperates for you. But you won't see me out there skating, but I'm sure that there'll be lots that will. Anyway, thank you again very much for doing this.
Thank you very much.
I'm just going to wait a minute for everybody to do what they want to do, because otherwise it's too noisy. So next on the agenda is public input, but there's no one to
What do you hear?
have public input. Next on the agenda is we need to adopt the foregoing minutes of the regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Marmor Lake held Tuesday, December the 3rd, 2024. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Ron? And second, Jane? Any discussion on those minutes? Being none, all in favor? That's carried. Staff reports. Kristen's Public Facility Usage Liability Insurance Program, and the recommendation is that council receive the Public Facility Usage Liability Insurance Program report dated December 17th, 2024. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Eric? Second, Jane. Any discussion on that report? Eric and then Jane.
I'd just like to say thanks for bringing this forward. This was my request originally. It's good to have this on record now so we know what this program entails. I don't really think we need a motion, but I'd like, or maybe we do, the clerk can comment on that, to see this included as a consideration on the upcoming budget.
You're making that motion?
just as
Eric?
to list this program as a consideration, and we can do some further research on the details of the program.
But are you making that a motion?
Yes.
Do I get a second? Go ahead.
We already have a motion on the floor. So I think we would need to vote on the motion to
Oh,
accept the
The
report.
recommendation you
Yeah.
need?
Yes. So that's been moved and seconded. So I would need a vote on that motion
Oh, okay.
and then we could take another.
You'll vote on that, and then if you want to put that motion forward. So all in favor? That's carried. Okay. go
Oh,
ahead.
oh, excuse me, to the chair, please.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
No.
Your hand is,
Yeah,
hard-
I know, I keep waving it around, but nobody pays any attention. Sorry. Kristen, I just have a couple questions. On the public liability, it's $1,760 and it says $50 per use. So that's like a fee every time somebody wants to run an event, they pay $50 to make the application to be covered by this insurance. Is that how I understand it?
That was not my understanding. Let me just flip to it here.
I wasn't sure if I read it right or if that's what it meant or.
Sorry, so that's just an additional fee. So the premium for the specific events that were included in our quote is the 1767. There's a $50 policy fee. So that's a one-time if we chose to enact the policy, the $50 would be added on.
Okay, so it's 1767 plus $50 paperwork fee or something
And then
to
if,
do it.
if we were adding the additional premium to add liquor liability exposure, that would be an additional $884.
Okay, but the $50 is a one-time fee?
Correct.
Okay, are we gonna charge people any money to access our insurance?
That would be up to council to decide.
If we're not having people require insurance, we've got this roughly $2,000 bill. So should we, I'd hate to ask you to go back to the fees and all that if we did this, Kristen, but we should be charging something for that. People do not have to have their own insurance now. We would supply it. So even if it was only $25 fee to access our insurance, do we just tack onto our fee to cover our insurance costs over the year? I thought it was the 1767 did it, and then every time there was somebody wanted to use it, they had to make that application that's on there, and it was $50 for that application. That
No,
was my
the
understanding.
municipality makes the application to include all of the programs that we expect to cover under the program. And that happens annually. And so the $50 is a part of that fee when we're establishing that policy.
thanks, Kristen. Eric, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so this quote that we got, my understanding is that's based on a total number of events of 188 events. If you look at the spreadsheet there, when you add those up, if you take the alcohol coverage out of it, that works out to about $10.50 per event is what that cost breakdown would be. Insurance is a requirement in our facilities, but not everyone is going to necessarily use the municipal program. Some user groups have their own insurance. So my vision of this is that this would be an optional program. If they don't have insurance of their own, we would be able to offer this as an option, and we could look at a cost recovery. The hard thing is in the first year, we don't know what groups are going to use this and what are not. So we could establish a fee so that we have our user fee for facility, and then should they want to purchase insurance through this program, they'd be able to do that at a set cost, but possibly no one would use this. So that's why it's my suggestion we put this as a consideration as far as a program into the upcoming budget. so that this policy would be funded, and then we can look back if that's added and we go ahead with this, we can look back in a year and see how many people used it, and was the fee that we were charging to use it accurate? Do we need to modify that in a year's time?
Thanks, Eric. So you wanted to put forth a motion?
Yeah, I'd just like to put forth a motion to include this on the consideration page in the upcoming 2025 budget.
Can I get a seconder for that? Jane? Any other comments? All in favor? That's carried. Next, John, your report on Building Inspection Services Board Agreement update.
Yes, so through you, Chair to Council, this is the reconsideration of a report that was deferred from an earlier meeting. And the recommendation is that Council receive the Building Inspection Services Board Agreement update report dated December 17th, and that Council provide direction to staff. Again, this is a motion that came before 2024-255. It was something that was brought forward to Council. The additional information over and above what was discussed at the last meeting is that there was a meeting November 28th of the BISB board, and a couple considerations. One is an enhancement of two things. One is the amount of money that's for the administration fee. And then on top of that, when they passed the budget, there was also an identification of roughly just under $164,000 in excess revenue. So this is on the BISB's front, the idea that they have reserves, they have a healthy reserve. They felt that this year overall, all 6 municipalities performed well. They felt that based on activity, they came up with a formula that looked at dividing that roughly 164,000 amongst the 6 participating municipalities. And what that ended up with is when you add the 7,500, which is the administration plus the share for Marmora Lake, roughly just under $40,000 is something that they've looked at as sort of, for lack of a better phrase, a sort of a dividend based on the performance of the partnership. And so that's one of the things they voted and that they approved. I submit that with the idea that based on discussions to date, and perhaps if there's anything else you want to add yourself, Mayor, in terms of other discussion, it may be something that helps staff, council provide direction to staff as to whether or not they want to stay in, or sort of idea of staying in in this, with the idea that when it goes for review, looking at the agreement and having some better language discussed as part of the renegotiation of whatever that renewal of a new agreement would be.
Thank you, John. Comments? Jane?
So the monies that are being allotted back, not the amount, but the process, will this be an annual event now? Dividend, as you refer to it?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Lactos, it wasn't necessarily phrased. I know that Councillor Derry may have some information or some insights as he was there at the meeting. In there, I did not get the understanding that this was going to be an ongoing thing. I think the intention was to where everything is going well, all boats rise with a high water. They were looking at this was a good year to do that. I think there was also a recognition that certainly the way the discussions have been happening in council before, I believe that board was mindful of what they could do to sort of even things out, or perhaps promote the benefits of the partnership to date. And this, I think, was a bit of a concession, or at least a recognition of how certainly a desire that it's better with all 6 involved as opposed to not.
Thank you, Eric.
So just for clarification on Jane's question, that's related to any excess that they deem in the reserve that they carry. What about a change in the formula for the disbursement of regular revenue?
So through you, Mayor, to Councillor Dowse, in that, again, Councillor Derry may be able to add more insight to how that discussion was at that meeting, but it was seen that the organization had indicated what they felt was a formula for healthy revenues in terms of reserves, I should say. They had a formula of 2 times operating. This year, they felt that with 1.5, they have 1.2 million in reserves for further operations. The idea of mitigating anything if either there's a withdrawal or termination of that partnership. So with that, of the agreement. So with that, there's a recognition that that excess amount was sort of a one-off, as in it's been a good year, a banner year, so to speak, and looking at that. They looked at the idea that before the splitting of the administration costs was the idea that there were 3 potential new municipalities that did not materialize. So rather than the 5,000, it was 7,500. It was taking the 45,000. I think again, they've set the precedent. This is the type of thing that they look forward to. If healthy reserves of 1.2 million going forward, I think again, there's a recognition. I wouldn't attribute this to the board itself, but I think there's a recognition that even if this council is trying to wrestle with, how do we look at a withdrawal versus a termination? What are the residual costs? And again, what would be the cost of if we do exit this agreement and this partnership, what would we need in the way of reserves to start with a chief building official and those costs? Those are things that we would like to see at least have an understanding and maybe mitigate against in future years, that if this whole agreement were terminated, what would that mean for the municipality? And that language is just not there in the current agreement, but I think recognize that something we could introduce into that conversation.
So on that note, has there been any discussion related to the terminology that this contract is presented for termination? How that's very unclear. Is there any motivation to update that on renewal from the board?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Douse. Again, not as part of the official business, but as a conversation afterwards, there was a recognition that this is something that better language has to be put there because it's not there. The agreement serves the organization while it's operating. It didn't really anticipate or more or less provide details around what would happen if, because again, it provides language that perhaps any municipality as a withdrawal would have to be responsible for the termination or cost thereof. But what if the organization still survives? So there's nothing that really talks about that. So if Marmora and Lake were to be one of those 6 that were withdraw and there are no costs, it doesn't really anticipate that type of scenario. In the same way, on a termination standpoint, what would you do with dividing the reserves on a proportional basis? It doesn't anticipate that either. So I think again, the lack of clarity is recognized. It works from a working perspective now, but I think there is recognition that in the future, and as we would renew it, we would change or revisit the language with the idea of providing those things. And I think, again, the discussion that council's had here and maybe spearheaded by Deputy Mayor Stevens is that's been a sort of shot across the bow to say, hey, you know what, this is working, but at the same time, we need to almost negotiate the divorce as part of the marriage type of thing. And I apologize, there's probably better phrasing than that, but I think where I'm going.
Thanks. Mike?
Yeah, from what I see is 2026, this whole thing comes up for renewal. So there is no withdrawal fee or anything in 2026 from what I read going forward. If we withdraw prior to 2026, then all this stuff applies. And going through, I read through quite a bit of that. The thing is, a couple of things I saw in there that I didn't like. Insurance, if anything happens, if we do something wrong in our municipality, we're fully on the hook for it as a municipality. BISB does not cover anything that we do through the BISB. They're held blameless. BSBIB also has their own insurance policy to cover BISB if anything was not the municipality's fault or our inspector's fault, but they're held exempt. So I find that we're carrying insurance twice. The other thing it says in that the time of each building inspector is to be divided by the number of permits that is being done by him. We only get 4 hours a week. And most of the time we have way more than we're right at the top. There's 3 municipalities that carry mostly the full weight of this whole thing. And we only get 4 hours a week in office. That's not proportionate. The other thing is I'm confused. I thought we got $15,000 a year to cover staff costs and computer and all that every year, no matter what. I only see $7,500 this year. And then the 47,000 or whatever it is going to be a distribution of the surplus. I don't see why we're carrying $1.2 million surplus. That would mean we'd have to do absolutely nothing all year and pay everybody at the same time. That's never going to happen. So I'm still not happy. I'd be more than happy to say that we just stay and don't do anything until 2026. And we definitely look at it after that. I still do not agree with the analysis that was done of hiring our own inspector. Going through it, we've averaged $157,000 a year in permit fees so far. What else is there? Yeah, that's the only questions I got. I still want to know, I think that was Eric's question too. The $15,000 that we got every year, is that on top of the 47,000? Are we still getting our 15,000? I couldn't make out head nor tails of that.
Then you wanted to say something?
Through the chair, Madam Mayor, we don't have a motion on the floor.
Oh, I know.
And I think part of that, I see there isn't one on your
Yeah,
agenda.
that's okay.
But if we could put one on the floor so that we
Yeah.
can continue to discuss and debate, that would be great.
I wanted to hear John's comments before I asked for a motion, so
Okay.
I did recognize that, but thank you.
Okay.
So we do need a motion on the floor. Ron,
I'll make a motion to accept the report.
thank you.
Thank you.
Second, Eric? Any further discussion? And John, did you have something more that you wanted to say?
Through your chair to Deputy Mayor, I think those are all really good questions. I don't have the answer on all those things. With respect to the $15,000, just coming new to that, I will get clarity on what that is. Actually, the treasurer may be able to add to that, but I do want to add that a number of the things that the Deputy Mayor has brought up, I know that the previous report from the interim CEO had talked about had some costs that perhaps were seen a little bit high. We can certainly look at the idea that as we indicate that we'd like to review that, we can provide a more realistic budget in terms of what it would cost to start up the idea of repatriating that service within the municipality, but maybe do that as part of a hip pocket discussion as we go forward, going further forward. But maybe the treasurer wants to add some more.
Okay. Nancy, did you have a comment?
I was just gonna say that in January, we received 15,000, but I believe that was for 2023. And we've received 5,000 so far. So I'm not sure, because I wasn't at the meeting. I don't know if that $40,000 is on top of the 15 or if this is the new number now. Like, I'm not sure exactly, but we can definitely look into that and determine what exactly that number is.
Okay, Ron?
Part of that 15, we purchased a truck last year. And we paid for it out of our allotment this fall. So that's part of that. We received the pickup money.
Yes, we have, but it was to be paid for in 2025. We haven't paid for it yet.
So it didn't come under 15 then.
Not that I know of, no. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sort of at odds of how to, I would like to, if this motion that's on the floor now, do we pass out? That's passed already. But going forward, if this whole thing comes up in 2026, I'd like to make a motion that we do not, we study this thing this coming year and make our decision in 2026 when the whole thing comes due, because from my understanding, this whole contract with everybody comes due in 2026 to be renewed by all 6 municipalities. So there should be no penalties, no nothing if we withdraw at that point in time. And to go for another year gives us lots of time to figure out what we're going to do. If we are going to stay, go, whatever, and get more information without putting a crunch on John and Kristen and Nancy this year.
Thanks, Mike. We have a motion on the floor to receive the report. So all in favor? That's
Okay.
carried. And Mike, to your point, I think what you're suggesting it will happen automatically. I don't necessarily think we need a motion. When any kind of a contract like that comes up, we should be reviewing it just as standard practice. So I don't really think we need a motion at this point to do that. I think it'll be part of our process.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Next is committee and board reports, economic development. And the recommendation is that the foregoing minutes and reports of the committees and boards listed are hereby received for information. And I have a mover and a seconder, Eric. And second, Dane. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Correspondence for direction, Hastings County Council report from November 28th, 2024, and the recommendation is that council receive the report for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Ron? Second? Jane? Any discussion on the Hastings County Council? All in favor? That's carried. Bylaw number 2024-21A, user fee bylaw, being a bylaw to establish user fees within the municipality of Marmor Lake. And I have a mover and a seconder. Ron, second Jane. Any discussion on that bylaw? All in favor? That's carried. Next, bylaw number 2024-77, municipal clerk appointment bylaw, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal clerk for the corporation of the municipality of Marmor Lake. And I'm pleased to announce that we have Kristen sitting here making notes. She's our new clerk. And congratulations, Kristen. So I need a seconder. Eric? All in favor? That's carried. Closed session. So we need, oh, sorry. Are there any announcements? Eric?
I'd just like to say thank you to the community groups for frolicking on Forsyth. That was a great success. Thank you as well for all the additional decorating that happened downtown and the lights on the going up the light post. Thank you as well to the Marmor Crow Valley Lions. The Santa Claus Parade was so much fun. The streets were lined. I had a great time with some of the neighbors on the street with our float. I'd just like to also let the public know that on December 20th from 5 to 8, Who Knew, Off the Porch, and Good for the Soul are teaming up to host a ladies' night. That's this Friday night. In addition, they're going to have things on sale, extended hours, there's draws, light refreshments, and they invite everyone out there for shopping discounts for a good time to treat themselves to a gift or maybe a holiday gift still for someone else on your list. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Anyone else have any announcements? Mike?
The OPP detachment in Madoc now has a new staff sergeant, Sean Trudeau. He started already. He replaced Jim Locke, who retired this fall. The other thing on Quinte Waste, the facilities at Quinte Waste are up for sale because we should be out of the recycle business in July of next year. And we have a tentative offer coming in on the land and buildings, which we might see some funds out of next fall. So that would be good if that happened.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Anybody else? Okay, so we need a motion to go into council. We'll proceed into a closed session under the Municipal Act, Section 239(2)(e), litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and it's regarding Riverside Pines. And B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and it's a personnel update. So I need a mover and a seconder for that. Ron, second. Dane, any discussion on that motion? All in favor?